Hey guys, tonight we begin a slow, quiet journey across the dunes of time, into a place that once lived and breathed, and then, as if caught in a dream, simply disappeared. No smoke, no conquest, no disease. It was there, and then it wasn't. This is the story of a city that didn't die, it slipped away. A city that never said goodbye, and tonight, you're going there. You stand at the edge of the desert. The sky is an endless stretch of soft gold, melting into a deepening blue. It's just past sunset, that quiet hour when even the wind seems to take a breath. There's no signpost, no road, just the hush of open land and the long shadows of sand dunes stretching out before you like frozen waves. Somewhere out there, buried beneath centuries of wind and silence, is a city forgotten by the world. And you're going to find it. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Also, I'd love it if you shared your location and the time right now in the comments. I want to know how far this sleepy story is traveling across the world tonight. Now, dim the lights. Maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You begin walking. Each step leaves a soft print in the sand, and for a moment, you wonder if anyone has walked this way before. Maybe they have. Maybe they haven't. But something about the path ahead feels familiar, like an echo in your bones. A place your body remembers even if your mind doesn't. You carry no map, just stories. Stories told in fragments, by Bedouins around flickering fires, by scribes who copied notes from travelers long dead, by historians arguing in quiet rooms lit by desk lamps and doubt. They call it many names, Iram of the Pillars, Ubar, Atlantis of the Sands. But the place itself has no voice, only silence. The first thing you notice is the shift beneath your feet. The sand here is finer, softer. It flows like powdered glass between your toes. You kneel, run your fingers through it. It's warm, still holding on to the day's heat. And then, something interrupts the flow, something buried. You brush gently, slowly. A stone tile. Just one. It's pale, hand-carved, edges rounded by time. You turn it over. On the other side is a faint marking. A sunburst, maybe. Or a flower. Hard to say. But someone made this. Someone held this. And now, after 1,000 years, you are holding it too. Historians still argue whether this city really existed. Some say it was a mirage, nothing more than a legend, a cautionary tale told in ancient scriptures. Others believe it was a trading hub, a rich oasis city that thrived for centuries and then collapsed when its water dried up or its well shafts caved in. And a few believe something more unusual happened, that it vanished suddenly, deliberately, like it was hiding. You begin to see more. A half circle of stones, worn smooth, laid out like a border, possibly the base of a home, or a market stall. There's a long, low ridge behind it, too even to be natural. Maybe a wall, maybe the edge of a caravan station. You walk its length slowly, feeling each stone with your hands, eyes adjusting to the growing dark. The moon rises, bright and round, and bathes everything in a soft silver light. The desert hums gently in the night air, a sound not quite silence, but close to it. You stop walking. Just listen. A distant wind whistles past, catching a loose flap of cloth on your shoulder. There's a strange stillness here, not empty, but paused, like a held breath. And then, almost too faint to notice, you hear something. Not in your ears. Deeper than that. A kind of hum, rising from the stones themselves, or maybe from your own chest. You place your palm flat against one of the old wall stones and close your eyes. The stone is cold now, unlike the sand. But beneath that cold, there's memory, texture, echo. You picture a woman leaning against this same wall, shading her eyes from the desert sun, watching a caravan roll in with spices and copper bowls and sweet dried dates. Maybe she had a name no one remembers. Maybe she's the reason this city still lingers. You keep walking. You find a well. Shallow now, mostly filled with sand. But the stone ring around it is intact, perfectly circular. A few tiles still cling to the outer ring, glazed blue, chipped, faded, but unmistakably placed by hands that once cared. You sit beside it, run your fingers over one of the tiles. It feels like porcelain, surprisingly smooth. You wonder, how many people came to this well? How many voices echoed inside its stone throat? And then you spot it, half buried under a wind-swept mound, a flat slab, larger than the others. It's been carved, though time and weather have nearly erased the marks. You kneel, sweep the dust with both hands. Letters, maybe, or symbols. The language isn't familiar. Not Arabic, not Greek, something older, something forgotten. Some believe the city was lost in a single day. A sandstorm, perhaps. The kind that arrives without warning, howling walls of dust that bury everything in their path. There are stories like that. Of cities swallowed whole, of people caught mid-sentence, of bells frozen in silence. But no bones have been found. No weapons, no signs of struggle. Just emptiness, and in that emptiness, a kind of peace. You close your eyes again. Now the city builds itself in your mind. The wide plaza with date palms swaying in the breeze, the children chasing goats between vendors, the smell of roasted lamb and saffron rice and mint tea, music drifting from a corner where men in long robes play stringed instruments and women laugh behind veils. At the center stands a tall pillar, perhaps the pillar that gave Iram its name, smooth, white stone, shining in the sunlight like a promise. And then, the wind shifts. Sand stirs, and it's gone. When you open your eyes again, you're back in the ruins, back with the hush of night, the stone beneath your hand, the moon above, and the question that no one has answered in 1,000 years. Where did they all go? Maybe they left. Maybe they were warned. Maybe they were never meant to stay long. Or maybe, just maybe, they're still here, watching, waiting, dreaming. And now that you've come this far, they might let you stay a while. You stay there for a long while, sitting by the old well, hands resting in the sand, the silence as soft as sleep around you. There's no need to rush. This place, whatever it was, whoever built it, has already waited hundreds of years for someone to return. It can wait a little longer. The air shifts gently, the kind of wind that moves without sound, brushing against your skin like breath. You look up at the stars. There are more of them now, crowding the sky in patterns older than language. Some constellations you recognize, others feel strange, unfamiliar, as if the heavens themselves have forgotten how to spell their names. And still, they shine. Your gaze lowers back to the stones around you. There's something oddly deliberate about their arrangement, not in a structured, geometric way like a Roman grid or a planned imperial city. No, this is more organic, as if the buildings were grown, not built. Like a seed of thought was planted in the desert, and over decades or centuries, the city simply unfolded around it, following lines you can't quite see. You walk again, not far, just enough to reach a set of 3 squat stone blocks side by side, half buried. They could have been stools, or steps, or maybe the foundation for something taller. You sit on one, gently. It holds your weight. And once you settle, something catches your eye in the sand nearby. A small round object covered in dust. You lean forward, brush it free. A bead. Worn smooth, pale ivory or bone, carved with a spiral groove that's barely visible. You lift it between your fingers. It's warm from the sand, but ancient. You imagine a child wearing this bead around their neck, or perhaps sewn into the collar of a tunic by a mother who prayed every morning her children would grow up strong and free from drought. What happened to them? That's the question that sits beside you like a shadow. Some scholars believe the city collapsed slowly, its well water running dry after centuries of use, the trade routes shifting as newer paths opened along the coast. Over time, people may have left one by one, seeking easier lives elsewhere. And the city, too proud to beg anyone to stay, simply faded. But others believe something stranger happened. In 1992, satellite imagery from NASA revealed a faint track of ancient roads crisscrossing the Rub al-Khali, the empty quarter, one of the largest sand deserts in the world. Those roads led to a place where ruins were found, including a collapsed limestone cavern. Some declared it was Ubar, the lost city. But historians still argue whether that was the real thing, or just another ghost. You look down at the bead again, still in your palm. It's a tiny thing, but in it is the echo of laughter, of voices, of people who once mattered. You pocket it gently and move on. Up ahead is a line of standing stones, 6 in total, none more than waist high. They form a crooked arc, like teeth in an ancient jaw. One has fallen over. Another is cracked, split down the middle by a root that somehow grew in this dry place. You run your hand along the tallest one. It's rough, marked with small grooves, not letters, not pictures, just marks. Countless tiny marks, carved one at a time, perhaps by someone passing the hours, the days, the decades. Maybe they were counting, or maybe they were remembering. You sit again, legs folded under you, and close your eyes. Now the city comes back to life, not as it was, but as it wanted to be. The sun is bright, reflecting off white stone buildings that stretch upward like tree trunks. The streets are narrow, but shaded with woven cloths strung between buildings, casting moving shadows over the stone. There's laughter in the air, children playing with hollow bone flutes, merchants haggling over the price of dried figs, a woman singing softly as she stirs a pot of fragrant stew. You hear bells, not loud, but gentle, camel bells perhaps, or wind chimes hanging outside a doorway. They jingle as the breeze passes. The sound is soft, like water dripping in an empty basin. It wraps around you, becomes a rhythm. And with it, you begin to sense a heartbeat. Not yours, not human, but the city's. A slow, steady pulse. This place was alive once. Not just built, but felt. Lived in. Remembered. You open your eyes. The stones are still. The wind is slower now, but the sense remains. A thought crosses your mind. What if the people here didn't die or flee or vanish? What if they moved underground? Not literally, perhaps, but into story, into myth. Maybe the city exists now in layers of sand and dream, half remembered by storytellers, half invented by poets. A city that lives only when spoken aloud. Maybe that's what you're doing now, breathing life back into it piece by piece. You pass what may have once been a courtyard. The stones form a large, irregular circle, and in the center is a raised slab with a hollow depression, like a bowl, but made of stone. Possibly a place for offerings, or maybe just a place where water collected during rare rains. You crouch beside it. The bowl is dry but clean, not cracked, not ruined, just waiting. You lean in and whisper, nothing specific, just breath, A thank you, perhaps. An apology. Or just a hello. The wind doesn't answer, but it doesn't move you away either. You feel welcome here, in the quiet, like this place remembers the sound of your voice. You rise, stretch gently, and take a few steps further into the ruin. There are fewer stones now. The buildings are more collapsed, less defined. But still, you find little remnants. A wedge of broken pottery, a bit of faded blue dye on a wall, even a rusted hook, maybe once part of a lantern holder.
Each one is a thread.
You keep walking, gently pulling the threads, back into the city's heart. You walk deeper now, each footstep quieter than the last, as if even the sand is urging you to hush. The city, what remains of it, is thinning out. Walls now give way to outlines. Roads, once paved or packed firm, are just faint curves of paler sand. But somehow, you can still tell where things used to be. It's like the city left a memory of itself behind, softly imprinted into the earth. You reach what might have been the edge of a public square, a large, flat expanse, bordered on one side by low stone foundations, and on the other by a cluster of collapsed archways. Time has bent them, twisted them slightly, like the skeleton of some great sleeping animal. They lie there now, hunched and silent, as though still holding their breath. You step into the center of the square. It's here that you feel it most. That presence. The way some places carry emotion like dust in the air. It's not sadness, not exactly. Not fear, either. Just weight. Like a thought too large for words. A whisper in a language older than your ears. Somewhere in this square, long ago, someone must have stood just like you. A merchant, maybe, announcing his arrival. A traveler drinking from a skin of warm water. A woman hanging a lantern before dusk. You imagine them in motion, in color, in sunlight. And now their shadows stretch around you like echoes. Historians still argue what exactly caused the city's disappearance. Was it the collapse of its water system? The exhaustion of its trade routes? Or maybe, just maybe, something even stranger? One theory suggests an earthquake. Not a massive cataclysmic one, but a subtle shift. A fracture beneath the ground that slowly pulled the city inward. Over decades, the foundations weakened. Wells dried up, roofs cracked, and the people, one by one, slipped away. Not in panic, in resignation. But if that's true, why so few signs? Why no mass graves, no collapse in a single direction, no artifacts in chaos? Everything here is calm. It's as if the city undid itself gently. You move past the square, toward a slightly raised mound. At the top, you find a ring of stones. Not large, maybe 10 feet across, perfectly round. Inside, the ground dips slightly, like a shallow bowl. A fire circle, perhaps, or a meeting place, or, some have speculated, a star map. Some archaeologists believe the people who built this city, if it truly was Iram or Ubar, used celestial alignments to mark time. The pillars of the city, long since worn down or buried, may have pointed to specific stars during solstices. That would mean this place wasn't just commercial, it was sacred. You sit within the circle, quiet, still. The moon has shifted now, and you notice how its light passes between two of the remaining stones. A coincidence, maybe. But maybe not. Above you, stars glitter like stories waiting to be told. You look for familiar shapes. Orion, the Big Dipper. But then your eyes catch something else. A cluster of stars not normally noticed. Faint, but arranged like a spiral. You imagine an ancient priest, wrapped in linen robes, standing exactly where you sit now, eyes tilted upward, murmuring to the sky. What did they hope to learn, or to warn? Your breath fogs gently in the cool air. You notice a stone nearby, flat, cracked, but still bearing a single carved line about the width of a finger. You reach for it, press your palm flat. It's cold. The kind of cold that feels deeper than temperature. And for a moment, it feels like the ground is listening. You whisper again, just a word this time. Still, still here, still waiting, still watching. You rise slowly. Beyond the circle, you find something unexpected. A stairway. Carved into the slope of a shallow hill, it descends into darkness. Only a few steps remain visible, the rest consumed by sand and time. You kneel and touch the edge of the top step. It's smooth, unusually so. Not worn, polished, like it was walked by thousands of feet, or perhaps cleaned obsessively. You hesitate, but then you brush more sand away. Carefully, slowly. You uncover another step, then another. The stairs seem to descend into what might once have been a cellar, or a ritual chamber, or maybe just storage. But the deeper you dig, the more deliberate it seems. This was no casual addition. This was meant to last. You sit beside the top step and rest your hand on your knee. If this really is Iram, the fabled city of pillars, then its stories go back further than most nations today. Islamic texts describe it as a place of unmatched wealth and arrogance, so proud that God struck it from the earth with wind and sand. And yet here it is, not destroyed, just quiet, removed. Maybe that's the real punishment. To be forgotten, to be magnificent once, and then erased so gently that no one notices. You look again into the stairwell, just shadow now. You imagine the last person who walked those steps. Were they fleeing, or hiding something, or returning? A chill rises, not fear, not even mystery, just awe. The city isn't haunting you, it's remembering with you. You stretch out on the sand beside the stairway, resting your head on a slope of soft dust. The sky above feels endless, and for a moment, it's as if the stars are bending just slightly to look down. You close your eyes again. The city returns in fragments. A bowl clinking gently against a stone table. The creak of a door in dry wind. The low hum of voices at evening prayer. The sound of a baby giggling. The long, lonely call of someone looking for their camel. Each piece fades in, hovers, and floats away like music in a dream. This isn't a city of ruins anymore. It's a city of memory. And now you're part of it too. You wake slowly, not because you were asleep, but because the silence had lulled you into something close to dreaming, the kind of dream you fall into with your eyes open. You're still lying beside the stairway, the one that slips into shadow, and the sand beneath you has molded itself around your back like a warm cradle. You don't feel cold. You don't feel afraid. You feel invited. You sit up gently. The stars have shifted again, silent travelers crossing the sky without hurry. Time here doesn't tick or toll. It breathes. A long inhale, a long exhale. It's easy to forget the outside world exists. Out there, clocks argue with deadlines and cities roar with engines and buzz. But here, the loudest sound is your own heartbeat. You stand, and finally, you decide to descend. Only the first few steps are fully exposed. After that, the rest are buried beneath a thick skin of sand that's grown heavier over centuries. But even so, you can feel the way the staircase curves, like a spiral. A deliberate design, as if to guide a person deeper, not just underground, but inward. You take one slow step, then another. Each time your foot settles, there's a soft crunch. Sand, dust, and maybe the brittle memory of what once stood here. You place a hand along the stone wall beside you for balance. It's smooth in some places, jagged in others. At one point, you feel what might be a carved line running vertically. A symbol? A groove? It disappears beneath the earth, teasing mystery. Historians still argue about underground chambers in desert cities like this one. Some believe they were used for food storage, kept cool by natural insulation. Others argue they were places of worship, hidden from the harsh gaze of the sun. And a few, quietly, of course, suggest these were places of protection. Against what? No one agrees. You reach a landing. It's only half uncovered, but enough to stand. The chamber beyond is still cloaked in shadow. You can't see its full size, only the edge of a tiled floor, once blue, now dulled by dust and time. You crouch and brush gently with your hands. A tiny square of turquoise appears, then another, then a pattern, waves. A floor painted with waves, deep in the desert. A quiet joke, maybe, or a reminder of something longed for. Water, flow, life. You breathe in. The air here is different, not stale, not musty, just ancient, like parchment left in a cedar box. It smells of heat, dust, and something faintly sweet, like dried petals, maybe rose, maybe something rarer. You take another step in, and something crunches under your boot. You freeze. Beneath you lies a fragment of pottery. Just a piece. Curved. Painted. You kneel and pick it up. There are faint lines in red and black. A bird, maybe. Or fire. Hard to tell. You turn it gently between your fingers. It's fragile, but still holding on. You place it on a stone ledge and keep walking. The room widens slightly. You feel it more than see it. The walls curve outward, the ceiling low but smooth, and in the center, still partially buried, stands a single object, a pedestal, waist-high, circular, made of dark stone unlike the others, granite perhaps, or something older. On top of it lies a bowl, shallow, empty. You approach with care. The bowl is flawless, not chipped, not cracked, and it glimmers faintly in the low moonlight filtering through cracks above. You reach out and touch it. It's cold, colder than the air, as if it's held onto the night for 1,000 years. You lean closer. At the bottom of the bowl, there's an engraving, tiny, almost invisible. You squint. It looks like a spiral. Again, like the bead you found earlier, like the stars, like the staircase itself. This place repeats itself, through symbols, through shapes, a hidden language written in circles. You wonder, what did this bowl hold? Water, wine, offerings, ash, or perhaps memory? You sit beside it and close your eyes. You imagine the room as it once was, lit by lamps filled with pressed oil, shadows dancing across painted walls. People gathered around, not talking, but waiting, listening. You hear a soft voice begin to chant, not in any tongue you know, but your body understands. The chant rises like smoke, soft, steady, round. You open your eyes again. The room is empty, but not alone. You rise, brushing sand from your legs, and walk to the far wall. There's something there, a hollow, like a niche or a shelf. Inside it sits a single object, round, flat, like a disc. You lift it carefully. It's metal, but thin, maybe bronze. On one side, there's a faint imprint, lines crossing, a tiny dot in the center. A star map, a compass, or maybe a key? Some believe desert cities like this used celestial tools not just for navigation, but for timing, for opening things, doors, rites, even memories. You place the disc gently into your satchel. It belongs with the city, but the city seems willing to share, just for now.
You return to the stairs.
One last glance over your shoulder. The room remains still. You climb slowly, step by step, until you reach the surface again. The stars greet you like old friends, and the breeze kisses your face with desert breath. You're not sure how long you were down there. Time doesn't move here. It hums. It waits. It watches. And as you stand again on the silent earth, surrounded by the ghost bones of a vanished city, you feel it. You are not alone.
Not in the scary sense, not haunted, just joined.
By those who came before, by those who built, who prayed, who vanished. And maybe, just maybe, by those who remember still. And that now includes you. You don't walk right away. Instead, you pause, standing under the open sky where the stars look close enough to touch. There's a warmth in your chest that wasn't there before, like the air has seeped into your bones, and with it, a feeling you can't quite name, something between peace and weight. You take a slow breath, the kind of breath you might take after waking from a dream you're not quite ready to leave. The city is quieter now, not because it was ever loud, but because your senses have adjusted. What once felt mysterious is starting to feel familiar. Not understood, no, but known. In that deep, quiet way you know the shape of a lullaby or the smell of your childhood home. You walk on. The sand is cooler beneath your feet, and each step forward reveals a little more of the city's outline. A low wall on your left, its stones slightly melted by time. A cluster of sharp stones to the right, possibly the remains of a kiln or oven, its mouth now a sunken hole. And then, something different. A patch of land darker than the rest, slightly sunken, as if something once stood here and was carefully removed, or perhaps simply dissolved back into the earth. You kneel, running your hand across the ground. The sand here is finer, almost silky. In it you find something small and sharp. A pin. Metal, no longer shining, but whole. It looks like it might have once fastened a robe or a sash. You wonder who wore it, whether it was purely practical or if it held some personal meaning. Was it a gift? A sign of status? Or just the only one they had? Historians still argue whether the people of Ubar, or Iram, or whatever name this city once held, were nomads who settled briefly, or settled people who vanished like nomads. Some evidence suggests structured water systems and architecture. Others point to the absence of burial grounds or permanent temples, signs that perhaps the city was more of a mirage, a gathering place that appeared and reappeared like a desert moon. You rise again and pocket the pin, not to keep, just to remember. You begin to notice something odd about the way the ruins lie. The structures are not placed randomly, but they don't follow a clear grid either. It's almost musical, like chords. You remember the spiral, the star map, the way the wind sounds different in certain pockets of the city. You pause in front of a row of rectangular stone bases, each one lined in a curve, like chairs watching a long-forgotten play. Was this an amphitheater? A classroom? A gathering circle? The wind sighs softly behind you. In your mind, you hear voices again. Not words, just tone. Low, steady, repetitive, like a chant or a hum. You step into the circle and sit on one of the stones. It's still warm from the afternoon sun, though the night air is beginning to chill. You close your eyes, and the city breathes again. The sun is high now, in your mind's vision, bright but not punishing. There's laughter, the echo of sandals slapping stone, children darting through the courtyard, an old man waving a walking stick at a goat. Women pass bowls from hand to hand. Someone braids someone else's hair. A pot clangs gently against another. And always, under it all, that hum. It could be the wind, or a song, or the very sound of being alive. You open your eyes. The stones are silent again, but not empty. They feel satisfied. as if your presence filled a space that had long been waiting. You rise slowly, stretching your back, and continue. Beyond the semicircle lies what may have once been a path, narrow, curved, lined with stones too small to be foundations. You follow it. Your boots sink softly with each step. Ahead, something glints faintly under moonlight. You quicken slightly. It's metal. No, two metals, copper and silver, twisted together. A fragment of jewelry, possibly, half buried in sand. You brush it clean and find it's part of a bracelet, broken at one end. The remaining clasp is shaped like a crescent. Another spiral. It's subtle, but you're beginning to see a pattern. Spirals in beads, in bowls, in bracelets, in pathways. Even the staircase curled in on itself. A culture obsessed with circles, not just for beauty, but for meaning, for continuity. You wonder what it meant to them. Birth, time, God. You hold the bracelet to your ear, not expecting sound, but hoping for something. The metal is cool, quiet. You place it gently back down in the sand, a small offering of respect. Further ahead is what must have been a small structure, maybe 2 rooms at most. A collapsed roof, 4 stumpy walls, and 1 still standing doorway. You enter. The threshold is low. You duck beneath it and find yourself in a tight space, sheltered from the wind. There, on the far wall, is something astonishing. Paint. Faint, nearly invisible. But it's there. Reddish, brownish pigment, forming a set of images. Figures, perhaps. Long limbs, arms raised. One shape seems to carry a bowl. Another has a strange crown or headdress, tall and spiked like sun rays. Between them is a spiral. Of course. Historians still debate the purpose of desert murals like these. Some say they're religious. Others say they tell myths. A few suggest they're warnings. But none agree on who painted them. Was it a single artist? A team? A child? A priest? The walls hold no signature. You reach out and place your hand near, but not on, the image. The room is utterly still. You sit there for a long time, just breathing, letting the quiet press gently against your thoughts like a weighted blanket. You don't need to understand everything. You don't need to solve the mystery. Just being here is enough. The wind picks up outside, and suddenly the sound of it through the broken stones becomes music. No melody, no rhythm, just soft moaning hums and whistles, like the city is trying to sing to itself, or to you. You rise, duck under the doorway, and step back into the night. You look back once, and in the doorway, for the briefest moment, you think you see something. A flicker. A shadow. A figure? No. Just light playing tricks on a tired mind. Or maybe the city is waking too. You stand there for a while, staring at the spot where you thought the shadow moved, right in the frame of the broken doorway, its sharp edges like arms held open in greeting or farewell. The wind still hums, not urgently, just persistently, like it's trying to remind you that something's still unfolding. You turn slowly, eyes adjusting again to the moonlight. Everything looks different now, not because it is, but because you are. You've seen too many echoes, touched too many half-buried artifacts to pretend this place is just a ruin. It's more like a memory you've stepped into, a dream someone else had long ago and accidentally left behind for you to finish. You walk. The path narrows slightly, and for the first time, you see what might have been a canal. Yes, even here in the desert. A trench, lined with sun-baked bricks, now mostly crumbled and filled with sand, but unmistakably man-made. It winds through the city like a forgotten vein. At some point, this channel carried water, maybe not rushing rivers, but enough to support life, enough to grow. You follow it. Each turn reveals more. A bent rod of iron, perhaps part of an irrigation gate, the stump of a wheel, long since rotted from its frame, even the bones of a plant. Yes, a plant, so desiccated it looks fossilized, but still curved with the grace of a reed. Historians still argue how desert cities like this supported agriculture at all. Theories abound. Deep wells dug with terrifying patience, kanat tunnels that brought water from distant hills, rain-catching cisterns that preserved every drop like sacred treasure. Some believe the people here mastered water to such an extent that they grew rice. Yes, rice, that most water-hungry crop, without flooding their fields. The trick? Elevated beds. Imagine for a moment wooden or stone platforms raised just enough above the ground that water could be directed underneath them, not into the soil itself, but along narrow channels beneath the beds. The roots would draw moisture through capillary action, while the people stayed miraculously clean and dry. No sloshing in the mud, no endless battles with mosquitoes, just clever engineering and a deep respect for balance. You look at the trench again and imagine it full, not of rushing water, but a slow, deliberate trickle. Just enough. Always just enough. It makes you wonder what else they understood. About the desert. About patience. About the relationship between giving and taking. The canal leads to a clearing, where the remains of larger structures begin to appear. Not temples. These are too humble for that. But communal, perhaps. One is wide and shallow, its walls thick, the corners rounded with age. You step inside and immediately notice something different. It smells cooler here. The air isn't exactly wet, but it carries a density that's missing outside. You brush the wall gently and notice traces of old moss, now dry and brown, but proof that water once lived here too. The floor is packed earth, but in the center you spot a shallow pit, perfectly round with smoothed edges. A basin, maybe for storing water, or washing, or reflecting. You kneel beside it and stare into its empty depth. No water, just a handful of wind-blown sand, but in your mind, it ripples. You can see them, men and women gathered here, maybe not praying, but listening. The way people listen when something larger than themselves speaks. The wind would blow through the city, bouncing off pillars, carrying messages too old for words. And here, in this cool chamber, they would hear them. You touch the edge of the basin, smooth, cold, honest. You wonder if the people who lived here ever imagined someone like you, a stranger from centuries ahead, stepping lightly through their lives, piecing together their world from fragments and silence. It's humbling. You walk on. Outside again, the sky has shifted. Fewer stars now. A thin haze touches the horizon. Not a storm. Just dawn, slowly pulling the night back like a blanket. It's still dark, but the light is coming. Ahead, you spot something strange. A tall pillar, unlike the low, crumbling walls you've passed so far. It's narrow, elegant, and still standing. About twice your height. You approach. Its surface is decorated, not with pictures or writing, but with grooves, spiraling grooves. Again, the spiral returns. Worn into the stone in tight curves, circling from top to bottom, like the fingerprint of a forgotten god. You run your hand along it. The groove is shallow but deliberate. No accident. Someone wanted this here. Was it symbolic? Or functional? Some believe these spirals helped water move, not in literal plumbing, but in spiritual balance. They believed motion, constant, slow, intentional motion, kept a city alive, not just in its roads and trade, but in its people, its ideas, its very breath. You circle the pillar once, then sit at its base, back pressed against the stone. It's cool and firm. You feel your heartbeat echo faintly where your spine meets the stone. The sun is close now. You can't see it yet, but the sky is softening. That bruised purple of deepest night is melting into velvet blue. A single bird cries out in the distance, not a loud sound, just a hopeful one. The city stirs, not in reality, but in your imagination. You smile gently. You can feel it now, the rhythm of the city. It's not gone. It never was. It just needed a listener. And tonight, that's you. The first hints of morning arrive like a whisper, soft, cool, and pink at the edges. You don't rise right away. Instead, you sit still at the base of that spiral-carved pillar, letting your body become part of the stone beneath you. There's a heaviness in your limbs, but it's not exhaustion. It's something closer to peace. The kind of tired you feel after swimming in a warm sea and drying in the sun. You finally stand and stretch. Your shoulders crack a little. The breeze runs gentle fingers through your hair. And now, in the faint light, you see something you hadn't noticed before. Footprints. Yours, mostly, but not all. There are older ones, faint, splayed slightly wider. Not modern boot prints, but something else. Maybe sandals, maybe bare. You follow them. They lead away from the pillar, along a line of crumbled foundations, and down into a shallow depression in the land. You begin to notice subtle rises and falls, rows, perhaps. The shape of a plan. You stop and squint into the soft dawn. You're standing in a field, or what used to be one. Raised beds, small irrigation trenches, the remains of wooden stakes, now petrified. This was a garden, or rather, a rice terrace, adapted for the desert. It's hard to imagine, but it's real. You kneel beside one of the former beds. The soil here is different, not pure sand, but a mix. Clay, perhaps. Silt. Something sticky enough to retain water, yet porous enough not to drown the roots. You scoop a handful and let it fall through your fingers. It's dry now, of course, but once, this was alive. And here comes the amazing part. You haven't sunk at all. Not a single squelch. No mud. No rot. Just firm, elevated rows where rice once grew without anyone having to step into a flooded field. Historians still puzzle over this. How did they raise rice without the classic paddies? Some propose wooden trays laid over moist ground. Others suggest ceramic pots embedded into soil channels, drawing up just enough moisture without creating sludge. One wild theory, still debated, claims they used a system of buried clay pots, slowly seeping water underground to the roots above. Passive hydration. No waste. No mud. No need to get dirty. You imagine them now. Early farmers bent over these rows, brushing wind-blown dust from young shoots, checking leaves for pests, maybe whispering small prayers to coax life from the soil. Not with force, not with chemicals, just with rhythm. A city that didn't conquer its land, but listened to it. You walk between the rows. There's something deeply satisfying about this layout. The balance of space, the quiet efficiency. Even now, emptied of greenery, it feels right. You could grow things here again, you think, if you had water, if you had time. You find a broken tool, half of a curved blade, not quite a sickle, not quite a knife. It's rusted, but the edge is still smooth, used for cutting rice stalks maybe, or reeds. You turn it in your hand, feeling the ghost of its weight. There's a dent in the handle, worn by fingers over time. Someone held this 100 times, maybe 1,000. You place it back gently on the earth, where it belongs. Further down, something catches your eye. Shards of clay, all in one spot. You kneel again, brushing aside sand. A pot, shattered, but not randomly. It looks like it was placed there, on purpose. Beneath the shards, you find something wrapped in fiber. It crumbles slightly as you touch it, but inside is a handful of ancient seeds. Rice seeds. Tiny, smooth, and, believe it or not, still intact. Not viable, of course, but whole. Someone saved these, stored them, protected them. Was it for next season? Or was it a farewell gift to the land? One final offering before the city fell silent. You sit back and exhale. The sun is finally cresting the horizon now, and the first full light kisses the tops of the remaining walls in gold. It's stunning, not harsh, gentle, like a spotlight across history. The city reveals itself in silhouette. You can trace its bones now, the residential quarter, the marketplace, the wells, the paths, all shaped not by ambition, but by care. This wasn't a place built to dominate. It was a place built to endure. You begin to walk again, uphill now, toward what looks like a small watchtower. Just a stump remains, but from the rise, you can see everything. The whole city laid out before you like a sun-bleached map. The spiral shapes, the curved beds, the glint of pottery in the sand. And it hits you. This city didn't vanish. It was never lost. It just stepped out of the way, like a good farmer letting the field rest, like a candle snuffed so the stars could shine. And maybe that's the greatest legacy. Not the ruins, not the myths, not even the miraculous rice. But the idea that harmony, true, lasting harmony, is built quietly, gently, patiently. You sit at the top of the ridge and watch the sun rise completely. You feel your breathing match the rhythm of the land, slow, steady, round, and without realizing it, you smile. You remain seated for a long while, still as the sun lifts itself higher over the horizon. The warmth on your skin is real now, not imagined or remembered. It stretches across the ridge where you sit, washing over the remains of the city like a golden tide. Shadows shrink, details sharpen, and the world feels more awake than it has in hours, maybe even centuries. You close your eyes, and in the quiet between your breaths, the city begins to hum again. Not with noise, but with memory. The hum is in the way the wind stirs the long dried stalks that once framed the terraces, in the way a single bird circles overhead, casting a slow-moving shadow like the hand of a sundial, in the way the light lingers on the rounded edges of broken walls as though hesitant to move on. You rise. Your body aches a little, not with discomfort, but with the weight of having been still for so long. You dust the sand from your clothes, brush your fingers along a worn ledge as if saying thank you, and descend once more toward the heart of the city. There is a new part now calling to you. You haven't seen it clearly yet, only hints. A curved gate half swallowed by the dune, the outline of something taller, broader than the simple homes and terraces. It might have been a hall, a gathering place, maybe a council chamber, or maybe something else. You reach it slowly, each step measured, mindful. The gate, when you get close, is beautiful in its decay. 2 pillars once stood here. One still does, proud and pocked with wind chisel marks. The other lies horizontal, sunken halfway into the sand, like it collapsed not from violence, but from weariness. Beyond the gate is the floor of what must have been a large central hall. You can still see the patterned paving stones, though most are cracked, others missing entirely. The space is rectangular, long, and wide enough to house dozens of people at once, and in the very center, a ring of stones. A literal circle. The spiral returns. You cross the threshold, stepping quietly as if afraid to wake someone. The stones in the center form a low wall, hip height maybe. Inside the ring, the floor dips slightly, forming a shallow bowl. You recognize the shape. You've seen it before, in cultures far from here. It's a listening pool, a place designed for water, not to drink, not to wash, but to reflect. When filled, the surface would become a mirror, perfect and calm, if undisturbed. People might sit around it not to speak, but to hear. What exactly remains unknown? Themselves, perhaps. the ancestors, the sky. Historians still argue whether these circular pools were practical or ceremonial. Some believe they were simply cooling features. Others insist they were tools of prophecy, even healing. The truth is probably somewhere between function and faith, like most of what endures. You walk to the edge of the pool and look down. No water now, of course, just a thin layer of dust and time. But your reflection still appears faintly in the polished stone beneath. Your eyes, wide, your cheeks, sun-kissed. You barely recognize yourself. Not because you've changed, but because something has awakened. You sit beside the circle, cross-legged, palms open, listening. At first, there's nothing but wind. Then, a rhythm. Faint. Not heard exactly, but felt. Like a pulse from beneath the floor, or from within your own chest. You match it. Your breathing slows. Your heartbeat evens out. You begin to feel the city again, not with your hands or your eyes, but with something deeper. The way a tree might feel the wind through its roots. The way sand remembers the tide. You open your eyes and begin to notice carvings along the inner rim of the circle. Spirals, of course, but also lines, dots, arcs. They resemble constellations. You count them. 7 main groupings, each etched with care, spaced evenly around the circle. Some look familiar. Orion, maybe, or the Pleiades. Others you don't recognize. Perhaps they were native to this land's sky, perhaps lost to time. One constellation shows a cluster of stars circling a single dot. The city? A spiritual center? Or perhaps a map leading to somewhere else? You reach into your satchel and pull out the bronze disc, the one you found underground, etched with lines and a single center point. It matches. Not perfectly, but close enough to send a small chill up your spine. This pool, this disc, they were part of the same story. Not isolated relics, but parts of a living system. This city wasn't built at random. It was aligned, to the stars, to water, to balance. It existed not just in the desert, but with it. A harmony so delicate that it outlasted kings, floods, droughts, even memory. You sit there, holding the disc lightly in your palm, and you wonder, what did they hope to preserve? Knowledge, peace, or simply the reassurance that someone, someday, would return? You rise slowly and take one last look at the circle. The sun is fully up now, and the city begins to cast shadows again. Not the long, eerie ones of night, but the playful shapes of morning. The ruins are bathed in amber light. Cracks glow like veins. Shards sparkle. Even the sand seems warmer. You step back out of the hall and onto the main path. The city feels different now. Not ancient, not crumbling, just quiet. Like someone who said what they needed to say, and is now waiting to be heard. You walk, not hurried, not lost, but welcomed. You slow down. The silence has changed. It's no longer hollow. It's full. Like the city is not empty, but simply resting. You follow the path through what was once a residential district. Smaller buildings here, tight clusters, spaces just big enough for sleeping, cooking, living. And even here, amidst the quiet ruins of ordinary life, the spirals return. They're carved into door frames, etched into pottery shards, worked into the corners of what might have been sleeping mats now flattened into the earth. They're everywhere. The symbol repeats like a whisper across time. You wonder if it had different meanings in different places. A decoration in one home, a prayer in another. A warning, maybe, or a map. In one crumbling structure, you duck inside and find a floor mostly intact. Small tiles, no more than a handspan wide, arranged in a pattern of lines and circles. It's beautiful, even now. You sit in the center and imagine the space full. Someone kneeling at a fire pit, the smell of something sweet boiling slowly in a clay pot. Maybe laughter, maybe argument, maybe just the quiet rhythm of routine. Historians still debate how much of daily life in Ubar, if this was Ubar, resembled other desert societies. Some believe they shared technologies with the Sabaeans to the west. Others think they operated in total isolation, relying solely on what the desert could give. The truth likely lies in between. A little borrowed, a little invented, a lot remembered. You lie back on the tiles, staring up through a collapsed ceiling at the brightening sky. The blue is deep now. The stars have gone. The wind has settled. And for the first time, you realize the city feels awake. Not loud, just present. It doesn't rush you. It doesn't ask anything. It just is. And somehow, that's enough. You sit up again, dust off your hands, and move further down the road. The buildings grow smaller still. Storage huts, perhaps. Grain silos. You spot a broken scoop, a chipped mortar. And nearby, a long, low building half buried by sand. You pause at the entrance. This one feels different. Not because of size, but because of shape. It curves. The walls ripple outward and then back in again, like the belly of a sleeping animal. You step inside carefully, ducking beneath a stone lintel that has shifted slightly in its frame. The air inside is cooler and darker. Light filters through a single hole in the ceiling. It's not random. It's intentional. This was a cold room, a storage vault, maybe for food, maybe for water, maybe for scrolls. You run your hands along the wall, and your fingers catch on something smooth. Plaster, maybe. Painted? No. Polished. There's a niche, low to the ground. You reach in gently and touch a ceramic jar, still intact. You lift it. It's heavier than you expect. You open it. Inside, dust, and something harder, a lump. You tip the jar, and a handful of small black beads roll into your palm. Seeds again? Or incense? You sniff. Spicy, sharp, almost citrus. Frankincense. Of course. This city was part of the ancient incense route. Traders would have carried goods across the desert. Myrrh, frankincense, cinnamon, and gold. All precious. All worth more than their weight in coin. This building may have stored the city's most valuable export. And here you are, cradling its scent centuries later. You place the jar back with reverence. Step outside again. The sun now throws strong shadows, stretching your form long across the sand. You turn, and for the first time, look back the way you came. The whole city stretches behind you like a stone mosaic, layered, gentle, still whispering. You feel different now. Not just like a visitor, but like a keeper. Not an archaeologist, but a witness. You begin walking uphill, toward a rocky outcrop where the city's perimeter ends. From there, you suspect, you'll be able to see beyond, to understand why they built here, to grasp what they saw. Each step kicks up dust. The path isn't marked, but you trust your feet. They've been listening longer than you have. You reach the ridge, turn, and see it all. The city, bathed in morning light. The terraces, the pillar, the circle, the dried water paths, the long, curving streets. It's all so much more than ruins. It's a rhythm, and in this moment, you are part of it. You sit on the ridge and exhale slowly. Your breath joins the wind. Your shadow joins the stones. And for a brief moment in the long story of the world, you are exactly where you need to be. You sit quietly at the ridge, the sun warming your back, and for a time, nothing moves. Not the wind, not the sand, not even your thoughts. It's a rare kind of stillness. The kind that doesn't demand anything of you. The kind that lets you just be. Your fingers trace lazy spirals in the dust beside you. That symbol again. You can't help yourself. It keeps returning. And not just around you, but within you. The spiral is in your breath, in your thoughts, in the winding path that led you here, and the way memory coils back in slow, comforting circles. Eventually you rise. There's more to see. You descend the opposite side of the ridge, where the terrain flattens again. Here, the ground is dotted with strange formations, half-buried structures, too small to be homes, too solid to be ignored. As you get closer, you realize they're tombs. Or maybe not tombs exactly. Shrines, perhaps. Markers. Memorials. Small stone boxes with slanted tops, each aligned slightly differently. Some with the rising sun, others with the stars. The tops are etched, not with words you can read, but with symbols. Spirals again. Stars. Curved lines that resemble wind. You pause at one, kneel, and notice something odd. A shallow bowl carved into the top of the stone. At first, you think it's decorative, but then you notice it's lined with a smooth, soot-dark patina, like something was burned here, repeatedly. Offerings. Someone lit fire here, maybe daily, maybe only once. You look up and see that several of the stones have similar bowls, some deeper, some cracked, all worn smooth from long use. This was a place of quiet ritual, not dramatic ceremony, just small, steady acts of remembrance. You sit beside the stone, and for a moment you imagine being the one who came here every morning, carrying a little bundle of herbs or dried resin, lighting it, watching the smoke rise like a thread between worlds, whispering a name, or not speaking at all. Historians still debate what these shrines meant. Some believe they honored ancestors. Others say they marked seasonal changes or celestial alignments. One fringe theory even suggests they were navigational markers, visible from the sky, mapping trade routes or water lines across the land. That one's not popular, but it's oddly poetic. You rise and move to the next, and the next. Each one is slightly different, some etched with more care, some cruder. One has a spiral so faint you can barely see it. Another is decorated with what might be a constellation, its stars hammered into the stone using some ancient chisel, now gone. You begin to notice how they're laid out, not in neat rows, but along a curve. Of course, a spiral again. The entire shrine field flows outward from a single point, winding gently across the landscape like the petals of a sleeping flower. You walk its arc, step by step, until you reach the center. And there, half swallowed by sand, is something that stops you. A stone ring, just like the one in the listening chamber, but smaller and broken. Half the stones are missing. The ones that remain are blackened by fire or something else. You sit at the edge and feel something, not fear, not sadness, something older, recognition. Like you've been here before, not in this life, but in a dream you forgot until just now. You touch one of the stones. It's warm, despite the morning air. And you remember something you read once, that in some desert cultures, stone wasn't used just to mark the dead, but to hold them, to keep the heat of the sun as a kind of soul presence, a gentle warmth that lasted through the night. You place your hand flat on the stone and let it warm your palm. It's strangely comforting, like a pulse, faint but steady. You sit there for a long time, letting the wind carry the silence back over you. You close your eyes, and somewhere, maybe in your own mind, maybe in the memory of the land, you hear a voice. It says nothing, just hums, a note held long and low. You open your eyes, and everything feels different again. Not unfamiliar, just deeper. You rise from the ring, brushing your hands on your clothes, and turn toward the horizon. There's one last cluster of ruins ahead, low structures, half buried, scattered across the slope like forgotten letters from a lost language. You begin walking. The sun is higher now, but not harsh. The heat hasn't yet become sharp. Your footsteps leave shallow prints in the sand, and you realize something wonderful. You're not in a rush. Not anymore. This city moves slowly, and you have learned to match its pace. Each step is deliberate. Each breath, a quiet offering. You reach the edge of the slope and pause to look back. The spiral path of the shrines, the ridge, the terrace beds, the stone circle. They're all visible now. A story told not in words, but in space, in movement, in quiet design. A city that never needed to shout, only to be. You continue forward into the final cluster of buildings, and feel the spiral turning again, not as a path this time, but as a thought. Something is waiting. You approach the final buildings with a strange blend of anticipation and calm, as though you already know what you'll find here, even if not in words, then in some deep part of you that's been gently waking since your first step into this city. These aren't homes. They're not storage huts or shrines either. There's a formality to them, a symmetry. The walls, though crumbled and broken in parts, are thicker than the others. The layout is tighter, more purposeful. You walk between two tall stone columns, both cracked but still upright, and find yourself standing in a wide, open court. And it is quiet, not like the rest of the city. This silence is different. It's not the hush of abandonment. It's reverence. Like the space itself is holding its breath. You take a step forward, and your foot echoes, just slightly, on the floor beneath. You look down and see it. Smooth slabs, polished once, still faintly reflective despite the sand and grit. This was a hall, a place of gathering, yes, but not for celebration, for decision. You've stepped into the center of what might have been a council chamber. You walk to the middle of the space. The floor dips ever so slightly, a shallow bowl in the center, surrounded by low stone benches built directly into the walls. The spiral again, only this time you are at its heart. You can almost see them, figures in draped cloth or braided leather, sitting quietly along the curve, eyes on whoever stood where you do now. No throne, no stage, just a center point, a space for speaking, or maybe listening. Historians still argue whether the Khmer Empire used formal councils like this, or if power was more centralized under divine kings. Some evidence suggests local leaders had autonomy, using sacred spaces like this to deliberate communal issues, water distribution, crop planning, festival timing. Others suggest these circles were spiritual, not political, used for meditation, initiation, or even dream-sharing rituals. You like the second idea better. You sit on one of the stone benches and lean back. A breeze finds its way into the chamber and curls around you like a slow exhale. For a brief moment, you can almost hear voices, not words, just tones, like wind chimes in the distance, like memory straining to be heard. You smile, and stand again. You walk slowly along the wall, tracing your hand along its surface. Here, the carvings are more complex, interlocking shapes that might represent stars or seasons or breath. They aren't narrative, not like a storybook. They're symbolic, meditative, like a pattern made to be felt more than understood. Then, in the farthest corner, you find a door. It's narrow, just a slit of space between two stones, but it leads somewhere. You squeeze through sideways and emerge into a small chamber, rounded, dome-like, open to the sky. It feels warmer here. The walls are lined with shelves, stone cubbies really, and in some of them, still intact, sit small containers. Jars, boxes, scroll tubes, some made of clay, others wood long petrified. You reach for one gently, lifting the lid. Inside, folded cloth, frayed and faded but still soft. You unfold it slowly. A map. Not a traditional one. No coastlines, no mountains. But lines. Arcs. Dots. Circles. Trade routes, maybe? Or a guide to water sources? Or dreams? Some believe these kinds of maps weren't meant for travelers. but for priests, used in rituals to locate the spiritual flow of the land. A few fringe scholars even argue these maps were meant to be walked, like labyrinths, physically paced out to trace knowledge into muscle memory. You fold it again and return it to its place, then move to the next shelf, a small jar, tightly sealed. You open it and are surprised to find color, powdered pigment, a deep red, like ochre. You dip your finger in. It smells earthy, almost metallic. This was paint. For markings. For ceremonies. For protection, maybe. You remember the spiral patterns on the homes and the shrines? Someone made those. With this. You begin to see the chamber differently now, not as a library, but as an arsenal of wisdom. Not to wage war, but to preserve balance. You spend a long time there, exploring each container, each corner. The room seems to stretch the longer you stay, revealing more of itself, like a patient elder who waits for your attention before speaking. Eventually, you sit in the center. You close your eyes and breathe. You feel the spiral within you again, gentle, slow, like a river winding through stone. And you wonder, maybe that's what this city was all along. Not a fortress, not a palace, but a pattern. A living diagram of how to move through the world with grace, with awareness, with humility. You open your eyes and whisper, not to be heard, but to acknowledge, I'm listening. And for a heartbeat, you swear the stone walls hum in return. You rise again and step back through the narrow door, into the council chamber, and then out into the open air once more. The sun is beginning its slow arc across the sky. Shadows are shorter now, more honest. The city seems more real than ever. Not ancient, just enduring. You turn and look toward the far edge of the ruins, where the sand meets the rock, and where paths disappear into horizon light. Your journey isn't over. But here, in the spiral, you've found something you didn't know you were looking for. Not answers, but rhythm. You step out of the council hall with the taste of stillness still on your tongue, the kind of stillness that hums, like the air before a storm, or after a song ends but still vibrates in your chest. You carry it with you now, like a slow-burning lantern lit behind your ribs. The path ahead is less distinct now. The city fades here, not dramatically, but quietly. The stones are more scattered, the buildings more like suggestions than structures. But still, you walk forward, guided not by roads, but by rhythm. Like you're following a breath you can't quite hear but trust completely. You descend a narrow slope where stone gives way to sand again, and the earth changes color slightly. Reddish, rich, not dead sand, but something living, growing. You kneel and press your fingers to it. It crumbles softly in your palm, light and dry, but it smells fertile. And then you notice the channel. A shallow groove etched into the earth, so subtle you might miss it if you weren't looking. But once you do see it, your eye follows it easily. It winds like a snake through the terrain, coiling gently around boulders, dipping into depressions. This was irrigation. You're sure of it. You follow the groove. It leads you around a ridge and opens into a wide, terraced bowl, flattened steps carved into the hillside, each one rimmed with stones. Ancient rice beds. Except here's the strange thing. There's no mud. The beds are dry now, of course, but the layout tells you something else. The earth is elevated, layered above ground level with packed clay and stone. Channels curve around the terraces like fingerprints. Each bed has a slope, yes, but not to collect water, to shed it. You frown. This isn't how wet rice is usually grown, not in the swampy paddies you know from other parts of Southeast Asia. You kneel again and touch the stone edging. There are holes in it, intentional, patterned, some angled slightly downward, like air vents or drains. You follow one to its end and find it connects to a covered trough that disappears underground. Now you're intrigued. You shift a flat stone and expose more of the channel. Dark, smooth, polished by centuries of flowing water. It runs beneath the bed, not into it. You sit back and marvel. These people were growing rice, delicate, water-hungry rice, without flooding the fields. You shake your head, half in disbelief, and half in admiration. Historians still argue how the Khmer managed such feats of agriculture in arid regions. Some claim they had access to ancient groundwater systems. Others suggest capillary irrigation, where water rises upward through porous layers rather than drowning the surface. One theory even posits that certain desert plants were planted nearby to sweat moisture into the air at night, slowly dampening the beds by dawn. You smile, because it all sounds impossible. And yet, here it is. You rise and walk further along the terraces. The layout is hypnotic, spiral again, though you didn't notice at first. The beds loop gently inward, like a shell, like they were never just functional, but symbolic. A reminder that everything, from crops to clouds, moves in cycles. At the center of the spiral, you find a platform, low, wide, smooth as glass, and beside it, embedded into the rock, is a carved panel. More spirals, more dots. But this time, people. Etched figures, long-limbed, crowned with curved headdresses, holding what looks like bunches of rice or wheat. Some are pouring water, others sit in rows beneath arching structures. A scene of harvest or ritual? You reach out and trace the lines with your fingertips, and something clicks. This wasn't just farming, it was ceremony. This wasn't a rice field, it was a sanctuary. You sit on the platform, legs stretched out before you, and look over the terraces. You imagine the people who once stood here at dawn, watching the mist rise from dry earth, not with worry, but with reverence. They weren't waiting for rain. They were working with breath, with rhythm, with balance. They weren't fighting nature. They were listening to it. You lie back. The stone is warm beneath you. The sky overhead is endless and kind. You watch a bird circle once, twice, then vanish behind a dune. The wind picks up, and the air smells like stone and memory. You close your eyes and picture it all alive again. The terraces rippling with green, the council chamber humming with low voices, the listening pool reflecting stars, the spiral paths filled with soft-footed travelers. And you, here, at the center, not as an intruder, but as someone who was always meant to arrive. You sit up slowly, brushing sand from your back. One last building stands beyond the terraces. It's small, low, barely more than a doorway. But something about it calls to you. You rise and begin walking toward it, not to escape the city, but to complete it. You step off the last of the terraces, the spiral now behind you, though it still hums inside your chest like the echo of a bell that never quite stops ringing. Each step forward feels like it's bringing you closer, not to the end of something, but to its heart. The final structure rests low against the slope, its stones sunk into the earth like teeth worn smooth with age. It's smaller than any of the other buildings you've seen, no taller than your shoulder, and half covered in wind-blown sand. If you hadn't been paying close attention, you might have missed it entirely. You crouch and brush the sand away from the entrance. The doorway is narrow, as though asking for a bow of the head before passage. So you bow, and you enter. Inside, the space is silent in a way that feels full, not empty. The air doesn't just rest, it waits. The room is round. Again. Another spiral. Of course. But this one is different from the others. There's no altar, no bench, no obvious purpose. Just a single shallow bowl set into the center of the floor, carved into stone so seamlessly that it feels more like a natural formation than human work. You sit beside it, and you notice something strange. There are marks on the floor, faint, nearly invisible, not carvings, not paint, just wear, scuffs, as though someone had knelt here, over and over, for years. You reach out and trace one. The stone is slightly polished from repeated contact. A forehead, maybe. A palm. Someone bowed here, again and again. It wasn't ritual for show. It was devotion. You lean over the bowl. It's dry now, but there's residue. Salt, maybe. Or ash. And something else. A shimmer. Like crushed mica. You breathe in slowly. There's no scent. Just coolness. You close your eyes. And listen. Not to sound, but to the pause between sounds. A different kind of silence. A silence made by intention. You open your eyes again and realize something. This place, the entire city, all its winding paths and clever irrigation and hidden chambers, wasn't just built to live in. It was built to remember. To keep memory alive without clinging to it. To offer the past, not as something to worship, but as something to breathe. You think of the spiral pattern again. It doesn't loop to trap you. It leads you inward, and then outward again. This chamber is the turning point, the exact center. You stand and walk slowly along the inside wall. Here, the carvings are small, so small they're easy to miss. A series of dots, connected by faint grooves. A sequence. A calendar? A song? Historians still debate what these markings represent. Some say they're part of a lunar calendar unique to the desert peoples, used to track both celestial and seasonal rhythms. Others argue it was a kind of musical code, a chant, perhaps, passed from elder to child and etched here as a memory device. A few fringe theories even suggest it's not for humans at all, but a message to the land, a way of speaking to stone. You smile at that last one, because here, it doesn't feel ridiculous. It feels possible. You return to the bowl and sit again, cross-legged. You let your breath settle. You imagine the rhythms of the past converging here, generations kneeling, whispering, listening. You picture them not as shadows but as companions, not gone, just further along the spiral. You stay like that for a long time, until the light shifts. You notice it in the corner of the room, a shaft of sunlight slipping through a narrow crack in the ceiling, landing not in the center, but just off to the side. As the sun moves, so does the beam, gliding gently across the floor, touching the dots on the wall in sequence. Not random. It's marking something. A story told through light and time. You follow it with your eyes, and it leads you out. You rise, bend again to pass through the doorway, and step into the afternoon sun. The city is behind you now, but it doesn't feel like you've left it. It feels like it's with you, in your breath, in your spine, in the way your footsteps align with the wind. You walk back up the slope, retracing your journey, past the terraces, the platform, the stone map, the council hall, the quiet shrines, the watchful ridge, and finally, the sand beyond. You turn one last time and look back. The spiral is complete, and it's still turning. You begin to walk again, not to leave the place behind, but to carry it with you. In your soles, in your shoulders, in your silence. Because now you understand. This city didn't survive the desert by fighting it. It became it. And in doing so, it learned the most important lesson of all. Stillness is not absence. Stillness is strength. The sun hangs overhead now, balanced at its peak like it, too, is pausing for reflection. Your shadow curls tight beneath you as you walk, not hurriedly, but with intention. Each footfall slow, steady, a little ceremony of its own. You are walking away from the spiral, yes, but not out of it. Because the spiral continues, always, inward and outward, at once. And the more you walk, the more you realize this place wasn't just a city of stone. It was a map of a mind, a philosophy pressed into soil, a way of being etched into the landscape so deeply even time couldn't erase it. The wind shifts, and something catches your eye ahead, half hidden beneath a dune. A glint, a sharp edge, not natural. You kneel and sweep the sand away. It's a tool, a blade of some kind. Not a weapon, at least not in the sense of war. The edge is dulled, the handle worn smooth. You lift it, feel its weight. Not heavy, well balanced, used many times. A farmer's blade, maybe, or a water channel cutter. You imagine someone long ago bending over these same terraces with this same tool, shaping earth with patience and purpose, not with conquest, but with care. And as you turn it in your hand, you spot something carved along its hilt. Tiny notches, 7 of them. Not decoration. A record, or a ritual. Some scholars believe Khmer tools were marked after each successful harvest, like tally marks, yes, but also blessings. Each notch a gratitude, a reminder of cycles honored, seasons endured. Others believe the tools were passed down generationally, the notches a quiet family lineage. You return the blade gently to the sand, as if laying it down to sleep. You continue walking. Beyond the terraces now, you come to another unexpected sight. Trees, not many, just a few. But they rise like green flames against the dry landscape, clustered together around what appears to be a depression in the earth. As you get closer, you hear it. Water. A spring. Faint, almost shy, but real. The pool is shallow, cupped in stone, ringed with smooth pebbles and low grasses. Birds flit between the branches, and insects skim the surface of the water in perfect spirals. Of course, spirals again. You kneel and dip your hand into the pool. It's cool, clear, alive, and you realize this was the heart of it all. Not the council hall, not the shrine chamber. This, a spring in the desert. The kind of thing people build cities around. You sit back and breathe it in. The shade, the scent of leaf and mineral, the soft murmuring of the water against the stone. This isn't just a natural feature. It's sacred. You can feel it. It hums with the memory of footsteps, of voices lowered in reverence, of jars dipped gently and lifted with care. You remember something from a half-forgotten book. In Khmer cosmology, water wasn't just essential, it was divine. It wasn't something you used, it was something you welcomed, honored, persuaded. Historians still debate whether the Khmer engineered their water systems primarily for agriculture or for ritual. The truth is likely both. But standing here, you understand something more profound. They didn't separate survival from spirit. For them, water was the ritual. You lie back in the soft patch of grass beside the pool. Let the shade of the trees dapple your face. Above, dragonflies weave lazy figure eights between shafts of sun. You feel your breath slow, and for a moment, you are no longer visiting this place. You are this place, still, spiraling, patient. You wonder how long this spring has flowed. 100 years? 1,000? You wonder how many others knelt here, as you have, and whether any of them felt the same quiet belonging in their chest that you feel now. You hear something then, faint, distant. Drums? No, not drums. Footsteps. You sit up and listen. The sound fades, then returns. Rhythmic, slow, like a procession. But there is no one. Only the wind in the grass. Still, you're not frightened, not even startled, just curious. Because if any place was going to remember its people so deeply they echoed back through time, it would be this one. You rise, step away from the spring, and follow the sound. Not directly, not to chase it, just to be near it. You pass more stones, more fragments of structures barely poking above the earth. One resembles a doorway with no walls. Another looks like a staircase leading nowhere. But somehow, it all makes sense. This city wasn't designed to be permanent in the way we understand permanence. It was meant to endure as feeling, not as function. To be walked again and again, so that those who came later would learn, not what to build, but how to be. You reach the top of a dune and pause. Below, the desert stretches out in endless folds, golden and pale and whispering. But you don't feel small. You feel held. As if the spiral you walked was never just in the city, but inside you too. A pattern you now carry with every step. You sit once more. Let the wind wrap around you. Let the dust rise and settle. Let the silence deepen.
And you think, maybe nothing here was ever lost.
It just needed someone to listen. And you did. You remain at the crest of the dune for a while, watching the light shift across the landscape like a tide rolling in slow motion. Shadows stretch, then fold quietly into themselves. You don't move, not because you're tired, but because everything you need feels right here, on this ridge, in this silence, in this moment. But eventually, your legs uncross and your body rises. Not hurried, not stiff, just ready. The kind of readiness that comes from listening deeply, when your bones say it's time to walk again, and you obey without question. Your path arcs gently now, curving around a low rise in the earth. You're not heading toward a destination you can name. You're following feeling. The same quiet pull that's led you through the spiral, the terraces, the spring. The sand underfoot is different here, firmer, grittier. You kneel and sift a handful through your fingers. Mixed in with the sand are tiny black flecks, shiny, like mica. Obsidian? Basalt? A few meters ahead, you notice what looks like a mound of dark stones, out of place in this soft-colored desert. As you approach, the shapes come into focus, rows of smooth, flat slabs, arranged with care, some stacked, others slightly tilted. And then you see it, etched into the stone. Symbols. Not language, not exactly, not writing in the way you're used to, but markings, lines, curves, spirals. Yes, again, spirals. But these aren't the broad spirals you've seen in buildings or paths. These are personal, intimate, each one a little different. Some tight and neat, others loose and wild. Some cut deeply, others shallow as scratches. You kneel beside one and run your fingers across the groove. It's not just carved, it's worn, touched, many times, by many hands. Grave markers, perhaps? Or offerings? Historians still puzzle over these scattered black stones found in remote Khmer sites. Some argue they were part of astronomical observatories, alignments with solstices and equinoxes. Others suggest they were memory stones, each one representing a person, not through a name, but through a feeling, a spiral of a life, an echo of a presence. You look up, and you notice how the slabs are arranged in a long arc, not in rows, not like a cemetery, more like a wave. You walk along them slowly, tracing the spirals as you pass. Some are clustered together, maybe families, maybe lovers. Some stand alone, but none feel lonely, just still. You pause beside one and sit. No name, no inscription, just a wide spiral, its line slightly jagged, like it was cut with a trembling hand. You close your eyes and imagine the person it represents. Were they a farmer, a singer, a child? You don't know, but you feel them. Here, beside you, like the land is holding their story, not in words, but in warmth. You stay seated for a long time, letting the hush settle back over you. The sky above begins to shift, colors deepening, clouds stretching into violet. Twilight is coming, and the world is beginning to glow. You rise again. Begin walking along the arc of stones. At the far end, you find something new. A circular space, no bigger than a garden bed, outlined with obsidian fragments and filled with pale white sand. In the center, another spiral. But this one isn't carved or built. It's drawn, delicately, like someone used their finger or a stick. The ridges are shallow, a recent marking perhaps. You bend low to examine it, and notice that it ends, right at the center, with a single pressed fingerprint. You laugh softly. Because of course it does. Someone stood here, not long ago, and felt what you're feeling now. Not nostalgia, not grief, but recognition.
You press your own finger into the sand beside theirs.
Not to claim, just to witness. To say, I was here too. You rise, brush your hands off gently, and look to the horizon. It's glowing now, rose gold at the edges, silver in the clouds. The kind of light that only comes for a few minutes each day. The kind of light you could almost mistake for a dream. And maybe it is. Maybe this entire place is a dream. Not an escape from the world, but a way back into it. You begin walking again, and the land seems to sigh in approval. Grains of sand swirl around your ankles. Birds circle once, then settle. A distant jackal calls, not in alarm, but like a lullaby for the earth. You keep walking until the stones grow sparse again. The spiral thins,
but never disappears.
because by now you understand.
The spiral doesn't end.
It just widens. It lets you go, but never lets you forget. You linger on the stone bench a while longer, breathing with the desert. It breathes back, not with sound, but with shift. Sand settling, cool air rising from the earth, and the faintest rustle of something alive in the distance. Not a predator, not a threat, just another traveler. Like you. The footprints you followed have already begun to fade. The wind does that out here, softly, gently, erasing not to forget, but to make room for the next step, the next spiral. You rise, brushing sand from your palms, and start walking again, not to leave, but to continue. You've begun to understand by now. The people who lived here didn't think in straight lines. They thought in loops, in returns, in rhythm. And that rhythm has led you now to a place unlike any you've seen yet. It's not stone. It's not shaped by hand. It's a field, a dry one to be sure, but unmistakably cultivated. The soil is a lighter tone here, dusty, cracked, but scored with long-forgotten furrows. Ghost lines where crops once grew, perhaps still do, in another season. Rice fields, dry, elevated, and strangely clean. You crouch, running your fingers along one furrow. No muck, no rot. The soil is sandy but soft, not desert, not swamp, just right. You stand slowly, scanning the edges of the field. And there it is, the ditch. Thin, angled, running the length of the rise, then curving down around the slope. Not deep, not wide, but smart. A water channel, carved into the terrain like a guiding hand. And above it, half buried, what looks like a set of flat stones. You approach. It's a sluice gate, primitive but elegant. 2 vertical slabs and a third laid across, angled just so, likely operated with a simple lever or even a reed plug. You can almost picture the water gliding through it, clear, controlled, nourishing. Historians still debate how the Khmer managed their water so precisely without modern tools. Some suggest they used floating bamboo gauges to monitor water levels. Others believe they followed celestial calendars to guide irrigation schedules. And some, more fringe, argue they read patterns in bird migration or termite mounds to forecast rainfall. You smile at that last one. Because really, why not? In a place where nothing is wasted, not movement, not memory, why wouldn't birds and insects be part of the equation? You follow the channel uphill a bit. The incline is slight, but you notice something. Along the top of the slope is a reservoir. Small, now dry, but lined with darker earth. A holding pond, not just for water, for time. This was a way to wait, to gather, to release on schedule. You close your eyes for a moment and picture it full. A glinting surface, a still mirror held to the sky, and somewhere, a hand reaching in to open the sluice. You sit on the edge of the reservoir, let your feet dangle into the dry basin, and you think, they didn't conquer this land. They partnered with it. Most ancient civilizations bent rivers to their will, dams, canals, embankments. But here, they listened first, then built in rhythm with the land's breath. Even their rice paddies didn't flood like others. No standing water, no muck-slicked fields, just elevated beds, carefully leveled, with hidden channels feeding each one, gently, precisely. Clean feet, clean rice. A kind of elegance most empires never achieved. You rise again and walk the length of the field, tracing the channels with your steps. You notice that each row is slightly curved, not straight lines, but soft bows, like the land is smiling. You pause midway, take a deep breath, and feel the breeze shift again. This time, it carries a new scent, faint but sweet. You follow it, around a bend, and there it is. A tree. A single fig tree, its trunk twisted, its roots fanned out like fingers pressed lovingly into the soil. You sit beneath it. Its shade is deep, and its bark is warm. This, too, is part of the spiral. Because the tree isn't near the field by accident. It marks something, a point of return, a place to rest. You lean back against its trunk and feel the smallest indentation in the bark behind your head. You reach back, touch it. Not random. Carved. A spiral again, faint, shallow, nearly lost to age, but there. And just below it, 2 dots. A smile, a signature. You laugh softly and close your eyes. Because here, even the trees are storytellers. You think of the farmers, rising before the sun, walking these rows, listening to the soil, adjusting a stone, plugging a channel, not with fanfare, but with trust. A partnership between root and rain, hand and horizon. You think of the way they must have ended their days, like this maybe, under this same tree, dusty, tired, but proud. Because they fed more than mouths. They fed meaning. You feel it now in your own bones. That meaning. It isn't loud. It doesn't demand. It just is. Like a spring waiting beneath the surface. Like a spiral drawn in dry earth. Like a song written in footsteps. And as the night deepens, you let the silence fill you again. You are far from the start now, but never far from the spiral, because it goes on, not to trap you, but to guide you, like water, like wind, like memory. You wake slowly, not from sleep, but from a kind of stillness, the kind that isn't an ending, but a beginning in disguise. The fig tree still shelters you, its leaves whispering above, stirred gently by the breeze that has never really stopped. It's the kind of wind that doesn't push, it invites. A cool hand brushing against your cheek, saying, "There's more." And so, you rise. Not stiffly, not abruptly, just naturally, like the tree's own shadow shifting with the hour. The field stretches out before you now in half-light, the last vestiges of daylight pooled at the horizon's edge. The air smells of stone, old leaves, and something faintly sweet. Jasmine, perhaps, drifting in on memory. You walk. Downhill this time, and at the base, a wall. Low, crumbling, but wide. Built not of uniform blocks, but of river stones, rounded, smooth, each one unique. The wall is less a barrier than a boundary. You step over it easily. And on the other side, a courtyard. Open, quiet, bordered on all sides by collapsed columns and the vague suggestion of rooms, corners marked by scattered bricks, lintels broken but still noble in their repose. You're in a school, not a modern one, not even one with writing, but unmistakably a place of learning. There's a stone bench in the center, semicircular, half buried, and scattered flat tiles that could have served as slates or low tables. Everything is small, scaled not for grandeur, but for gathering, for closeness. You sit on one of the stones. It's warm from the day's heat, and the shape of it cradles your spine like it's remembering the weight of 1,000 students before you. This was not a royal place. It was a place for everyone. A teacher would have sat where you sit now, and the others, children perhaps, or farmers seeking wisdom after work, would have circled around. No desks, no quills, just minds, open like lotus buds in morning sun. What did they learn here? Historians still speculate. Some say Khmer education was strictly oral, songs, chants, riddles passed down like heirlooms. Others suggest they had rudimentary writing systems, now lost, their paper and palm leaf scrolls long returned to dust. And then there are whispers, half dismissed, half believed, of glyphs etched into rice grains as a form of micro-meditation. You smile. You hope that one's true, because it sounds like something the spiral would do, hide meaning in the smallest, quietest places. Your fingers brush the ground, and you find another groove. This one's not a spiral. It's a shape, a rectangle, with parallel lines across its length. A grid? No, a musical grid. You've seen it before, in the lotus chamber, the rhythmic lines. But here, they're longer, clearer, as if someone once laid out songs here the way others lay out prayers. And now, in your mind, you begin to hear it. A low hum, a rising tone, a 3-beat pattern repeated again and again. You tap your fingers softly. Feel the rhythm take hold. You realize you've been in rhythm this entire time, with your breath, with your steps, with the wind curling through stone. You stand. Walk to the edge of the courtyard. Beyond it, a small platform, raised only slightly above the earth, but centered perfectly with the setting sun. You step onto it, and suddenly, the landscape opens. You can see the entire field you walked earlier, the reservoir, the fig tree, the terraces far beyond. You turn slightly, and there, just visible in the last light, you see the edges of the spiral again. You're above it now, seeing what you felt, and it takes your breath, because it's perfect. Not symmetrical, not polished, but true. A spiral carved into earth not for beauty, not for control, but for care. It organized movement, organized memory, from birth to breath, to harvest to hush. You turn back to the platform. Something is scratched into the center. You crouch, a circle with 4 dots inside, and between each dot, a tiny arch. A bridge? Or a gate? You run your hand over it. The stone is worn, but the grooves are still shallowly etched. And your mind hums. Because this is a map. Not of geography, of belonging. A reminder that between each phase of life, each movement of the spiral, there is always a crossing, a transition, a place to pause and say, I am not who I was, and not yet who I will be, but I am here. You sit cross-legged on the stone. Breathe in. Breathe out. The wind curls around you like a ribbon now, soft and steady. You let the rhythm return. 3 beats. Then a pause. Like footsteps on dry earth. Like a heart waiting to decide. You look up. The first stars blink awake, and you whisper, not to be heard, but to be remembered. I was here. You don't need to shout it. The spiral remembers. Always. You close your eyes. Feel the warm stone beneath you. The open sky above. The rhythm inside. And for a moment, you are not separate from this place. You are this place. As surely as rice rises from dry earth. As surely as fig roots grip stone. As surely as memory loops back to the beginning. You stay that way for a long time. Not because there's nowhere else to go, but because you don't need to go. Not yet. Not now. Now is enough. The stars are fully out now, not scattered and timid, but bold and infinite, thick as salt across black velvet. You lie back on the stone platform, hands folded on your chest, feeling the breath of the land beneath you. It rises gently, not in motion, but in energy. A slow pulse, like a drumbeat beneath the soil. You listen, and you remember. This empire, this vast, intricate Khmer world, wasn't all towering temples and glittering kings. It was this, too. Quiet stone benches, spiral paths, water managed with intuition instead of arrogance, learning passed by moonlight, grains of rice carried in woven cloth. You realize they weren't obsessed with monuments. They were devoted to rhythm. It's why they lasted so long. Why they fed so many. Why you're still here now, in this story, surrounded by silence that hums like music just beneath your hearing. You sit up slowly, not because it's time to go, but because something's waiting. Just beyond the platform, a narrow path winds down toward what looks like a pool. Not a grand reservoir this time. A small, round basin, ringed with worn stones. You follow the path, your feet whispering across packed dirt. The basin is filled with water, shallow, moonlit, still. You kneel at the edge. Your reflection greets you. But not the sharp reflection of a mirror. A softer one, blurred slightly by wind and ripple. It doesn't show your age. It shows your presence. You reach out and gently dip your fingertips into the water. It's cool, not icy, not warm, balanced. And when you lift your hand again, something shifts in the air. A breeze rises just slightly, and with it, the sound of bells. Faint, distant, but unmistakable. Bells. Soft, hollow, gentle. You rise to your feet and follow the sound, letting it guide you through the narrow passage beside the pool. The path bends and curves, hemmed in by tall reeds and whispering trees. And then, it opens. A courtyard, circular again. But this one is intact, fully intact, surrounded by columns, each bearing carvings that swirl like water. In the center, a bell tower, wooden, ancient, still standing. The bells, 5 of them, hang from curved beams like fruits from a tree. One swings lightly, moved not by rope, but by wind. The sound it makes is pure serenity, a single note stretched into silence. And you realize, this isn't a warning bell, or a summons. It's a breath, a reminder. The Khmer had no clocks like ours, no ticking, no numbers. They had bells, to mark the changing light, the start of planting, the honoring of the ancestors. Some historians suggest certain bells were tuned to specific stars. Others say the tones mirrored the 5 elements: earth, water, fire, air, and spirit. Still others believe the bells were silent most days, rung only when needed, when grief was heavy or joy unbearable. You walk beneath the tower and look up. The beams creak softly, shaped by time, not tools. You wonder how many hands have stood here, how many generations gathered beneath these bells, listening for more than just sound. You sit cross-legged at the center of the circle, the moon above you, the bells above that, and the earth below. A perfect axis, a turning point, a breath. You close your eyes and listen, not just to the bells, to everything, to the quiet language of this place. And in that stillness, something unspoken begins to move through you. A memory, not yours, but shared, of people bent low in fields, of a girl drawing spirals with her finger in dust, of a boy learning the timing of gates and water, of a family resting beneath a fig tree, of a teacher singing history by starlight. You see them, not as ghosts, not as statues, but as motion, as breath, as part of a rhythm that never stopped. You open your eyes again, and something is different. The air feels thicker, not heavy, full, as if the world is closer than before, as if time has softened, lost its edge. You walk the circle once, slowly, letting your fingers brush each column as you pass. On the last one, your hand catches a notch. You turn your palm against it and realize it fits. Perfectly, like the stone was shaped for you, or you were shaped for this. You rest your palm there. Feel the echo of others who stood where you now stand. And for a moment, the spiral stops. Not because it ends, but because you've found the center. Not of the empire, of yourself. You smile, eyes closing, breath deepening. And the bells whisper once more, low, clear, unforgettable. You sit a little longer beneath the bell tower, listening to the last echo drift through the night air. That soft, rounded sound you first thought was distant bells. It's still there. But now, you realize it's not coming from outside. It's in you. A hum, a warmth, a kind of low, ringing memory that has nothing to do with noise and everything to do with presence. You rise slowly, palms pressed against your knees like the farmers you've imagined a dozen times by now. You're dusty, quiet, steady, and something in you has settled. Not ended, settled. Your feet find the path again, only now it feels like your path, not borrowed from history, not guided by invisible hands, just yours. The earth feels softer beneath your soles. You pass back through the grove where the fig tree rests, still rooted like a mother watching her children. You nod to it. It doesn't nod back, but it doesn't need to. A spiral doesn't return to the beginning to repeat. It returns to understand. You remember how you first arrived, wondering how rice could grow without mud, how such a massive empire could rise from such quiet earth. You smile at the thought now, because you know. The Khmer didn't fight the land. They listened. They didn't drain the rivers. They followed them. They didn't flood their fields with brute force. They invited water to flow gently through their design. They carved shallow terraces that rested like open palms along the slopes. Every channel you followed, every reservoir you stood beside, every sluice gate you imagined lifting with a wooden stick, it was all part of a single intention. Let the earth breathe. And now, as you walk the final path out of the courtyard, past the learning circle, past the tree, past the fields sleeping under starlight, you're breathing with it. Calm, even, anchored. You stop once more and turn back. Not because you're unsure, because it's important to see it. The silence, the shape of what was once an empire, not in stone, but in memory, in repetition, in trust. And though historians still argue whether the Khmer declined because of war, drought, religious shifts, or royal infighting, you're left thinking that maybe, just maybe, they didn't fall at all. Maybe they faded, like music, like incense, like a spiral widening so gently that it disappears into the horizon. Never broken, just too wide to see. You turn forward again. No fanfare, no final monument, just a quiet trail leading you back to your own world, changed. Not with facts, not with dates, but with understanding. You know now that history doesn't always roar. It hums, It plants. It flows gently between the fingers of farmers, monks, and water-bearers. It loops and loops until one day you realize the story was never about power. It was about rhythm. And now you carry it. In your breath, in your step, in the quiet bell ringing somewhere deep inside you. Welcome back, traveler. You made it. And the spiral, well, it's still turning. Always. Silently. Lovingly. Forever.